Oh, well, I switched mics. There we go. My bad. Sorry. Going live, this is how it works sometimes. I hope everyone is doing great. It is Monday, March 30th, and so sorry about that. I didn't mean to press the button and call for the mic there, but such is live streaming. Okay, March 30th, and if you're new here, I do these live streams Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Time. Okay, let's give it a second. I'm going to check I was trying to do that before I hit the live button, so let me just check to make sure we are up and rolling across all the wonderful platforms. Should be. We normally are, but you never know. So if we go to LinkedIn, let's see here. LinkedIn. It looks like, I don't know how he's saying the events ended. I'm sure it didn't end. Okay, yeah, no, we're still going. Okay, going there. And we are going, hopefully on YouTube. And if you're here and you're in the chat, just let me know. Would love to know how to save me this extra time. But yeah, looks like we're live there as well. So, okay. Okay. Text my son about something. And then I am good to go. All right, it is Monday, March 30th. Man, I was doing some planning this weekend, and it just like, wow, it's hard to believe that Q1 is over. Even though I was doing Q2 planning, I was just thinking about like, man, it's just wild how fast the year has gone. And it honestly, since 2020, I think 2020 really showed me that unless you're not doing anything, when you have just a normal life, life goes by fast, right? And 2020 really slowed things down. So anyways, all right. There's a hard thing. I want to talk real quick, but the hard thing about being a consultant, anyone really, is that you know that people want things fast. Like that's what you know. They want things fast. And so what you're trying to do is compress the time that you give it to them and market in a way that's honest, but also understanding that the shorter that you can sell it to them and they believe it, the more likely they are to buy it. This is how it works. And so, you know, if someone says, this extreme example, you have stage 4 cancer, and for $1 million, we can cure it in a day, or it's going to take you $1 million and cure it in 3 years. Most people, they can scrounge the money up, would pay the $1 million for the day. And so that's just how it works. And so in the advisory, coaching, consulting world, you're always, if you're being honest, you're trying to figure out, well, what can you honestly give people if you have integrity? And what can you give it to them in a way that hits that threshold of speed? And this has led society to talk about trading time for money. And I've said it, you've said it, so I'm not throwing stones here. We say we don't want to trade, we don't want to say there's time and then money. And the reality though is this is actually false. Like this is not true. It's a shorthand way of how we think about things, but it's not actually the true way. So if you're a business owner and you net, let's just say you net, $750K a year, right? Well, you can simply just take the hours you work and, let's say you worked, insert hours here, hours is what's a variable. I don't do the math live on here. And then that's actually your hourly rate, right? But then you might have something like investments, and you might invest, I don't know, let's say you go crazy and you invest $250K a year. You're doing really good on investing. So you're netting this, and you're investing that, right? So that's actually making $1 million a year. But then this, as we know, because compound interest, it turns into, $350, $450. And we start saying stuff like, we don't want to trade time for money. And that's true. You don't want to trade time for money in the way that we talk about it. Now, some people are saying you don't want to trade time for money in the sense of own your own business or charge a different structure or do stuff like this. But the reality though and that owners need to understand, and we all need to understand, is that you're always trading time for money. You're always trading time for money. Like, you can't get out of that. The key is you have to understand how that works, what you're actually doing. So let me make a crazy analogy here. Let's say that you go today, I don't know what the lottery ticket's worth, but let's just say it's worth $1 billion. It's worth $1 billion. And you buy one. And were they $2 now? A buck, $2? Let's just say they're $2. $2. So you buy a $2 ticket and you win it. You get $1 billion after taxes, all that stuff. Let's just keep the math simple. $2 billion. Now you might look at that and say, well, I spent, 10 minutes going to the store. I got a Coke while I was in there. So I was in there for 10 minutes. And then I drove, well, that's bad. And I drove home another 10 minutes, right? So you might look at that and say, well, this cost me 30 minutes of time. Well, that is true. In the most practical way, it costs 30 minutes of your time to win $1 billion. Now, I'm not saying go play the lottery, but in this thinking, it did. The problem is that we forget that you had to, A, have the $2, which is not a lot of money, but work with me here. You had to have the car and the house and the time to go do it, right? So for all of these, you had to have things that are already in place. And so really, this $2 investment costs you a lot more because you had to buy the house, you had to get or rent the house or whatever it is, and it had to be close to the gas station, and you had to have the vehicle to get you there, and you had to have, maybe a babysitter or something to get out of the house, or whatever the situation is. All those factors come in. So it actually costs you more than $2. Just at the moment of the sale, it was a $2 transaction. So the $2 transaction is very time focused. And it looks at it and goes, time for money. Okay, when you spent 30 minutes, you made $1 billion. And if we're being honest, if you can do that, great. The problem is that when a lot of consultants and coaches and marketers are saying time for money, what they're doing is they're not accounting for a few things. One, the historical data and education and knowledge that you had to have to get to a certain spot. So if you're wanting to be a business owner and you want to, have a successful business, there's a certain amount of information that you have to have at your disposal, either through you or through your employees, to help you do that. The other thing is that you need to rethink about how you're making your money. So think about it like this. If you're going back up to where I was up here, if you're netting, let's just say $750K, that's after investments and all that. Let's just take that off. So you're netting $750K. Cool. That's good. And then you sat down and you said, well, I actually worked, let's just put some numbers on this. Let's just say you worked, pick a number here. I don't know. Let's pick a number. Let's say you work 15. Let's say you work 35 hours a week. 35 hours a week, and you work 50 weeks a year. So you work 1,750 hours, right? Hours, right? So that's the time that you worked, and that's the money that you got. So it ties there. Now, you got a lot of this money from employees, right? So you have employees that are going out and doing work on your behalf. And so even though you work 1,750, your employees are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, whatever it might be, and they're making you money too. And so, again, it's very, very simple. What owners want to do is they want to make this number where they can't calculate it. And that's the difference, because there's always a way to calculate it. So if you said, I'm just going to clear some of this off here so I can keep drawing things that people can't read and see, but it helps me think through stuff. So bear with me, hopefully. Let's change the size there. Okay. So if you said, I want to invest, we'll say $1,000 into a stock market, right? And then the returns on that turn out to be that, again, just making numbers up here. Let's just say it's $50,000. You invest dollar cost average, we'll say $1,000 a week. And then, in a few years, it's worth $50,000, right? Well, how do you calculate the time versus money there? Because this $1,000 that you put into the stock account over and over and over again, dollar cost averaging is kind of what they would call that. And I like that model. It makes sense. But how do you calculate how that transformed into this? Well, you can take the $1,000 and multiply and figure out the returns and go, okay, well, the return was this, the time period, taxes, all that stuff. And so again, I'm trying to keep this high level because it's getting the weeds is too annoying, but my brain goes there. So anyways, you can calculate the investment time, the return time, all of a sudden figure out, the $1,000 per week, how it got to $50,000, what was the return on that. But you didn't calculate how much time it took you each week to earn the extra money that you needed to invest in that, right? So you didn't say, well, I had to work, X number of hours a week to invest this $1,000. And when I did that, then that did this. And then you didn't say, well, okay, the $1,000 a week was pretty easy to give up, but you didn't calculate all the extra time that you maybe had to invest to learn, to hire, to fire. The conversations with the employees that you really can't track, they didn't move the needle as far as making a sale or firing anyone or hiring anyone, but they were encouragement and stuff like that. You didn't track all that. So that's where you want to be as an owner. You want to be where the number is untrackable. It's impossible. Like it would take you more time than it's worth to figure out how your money is working for you. And so when we're talking about removing owner dependency, and that's a big thing here. That's the biggest lever that I've found after talking to 350 owners, probably 400 now, but I say 350 because I counted it up, but it's probably 400 about, selling their business, what's going on in their business. It's owner dependency. And what happens is that we're pitched this line about trading time for money. I will say it, you've said it, we've all said it. But if we really break it down, it would be better to say, you're always trading time for money. What you want to do is to make the time for money calculation incalculable. Is that a word? Something you can't calculate. I don't know if that's a word or not, but it's something you can't calculate. It's something that it's so crazy that you don't understand it. Kind of like the example of the lottery ticket, right? You bought the ticket for $2, but then you had to calculate all the stuff to figure out to get the $2 and the time and all stuff. Like, I can't figure that out, right? And then you invest the Powerball earnings and it compounds. Well, if you're sitting here as an owner and you're making, whatever you're making, you're doing the simple calculation of, this is how many hours I worked. This is my net. Great. But what you're missing out on is if you can calculate it like this, you're probably not in the class that's going to take you to the spot to where it's incalculable. I'm gonna keep saying that. I don't know if it's a word or not, but let me know in chat if it's a word. I have no idea. I'm a redneck, so. So what you want to do is say, well, I didn't work next year. I worked 17 instead of I made 750. I made 1750, and then I made 750, and then man, I was at the office pretty rare, so I made 500,000. 500 hours. And then my investments, they grew. And so I didn't do any hour work on that. And they grew by, let's just say $40,000 just to make them put a number out there. Okay, well, I don't really know how to do this because that's there. And then the business, went from, say 5 million in revenue to 6 million revenue. I didn't actually work more. I worked less. Okay, so that means I made the same. I made it $750K. I worked less. So my time for money equation goes up as far as it's a strict hour for hour trade-off. And then my investments were going up. And so how do you figure that out? And then, wait, hold on. If I'm working less in the business, and this is where it becomes kind of interesting. If I'm working less in the business, we had to build out SOPs, had to hire a sales manager, we had to do these things. But we made more money as a company. The revenue was up, the margin stayed good. I made the same. But the value of the company is now worth more because buyers, when they come to buy your company, want to buy a business that doesn't have owner dependency. So maybe this company, I always joke that companies trade for a 3 to 7x multiple. So let's just say that the EBITDA on this, just to keep the math simple, was $1 million. Oh. So the value on this was $1 million. The EBITDA was $1 million. EBITDA, okay. And so here at 5 million, let's just say the low end was a 3x multiple. You could have gotten a 3x multiple. So it was worth $15 million. But now you're doing $6 million in revenue. You're still making the same. But instead of that, let's just say it went up a turn, as we would call it. So let's just say you still have 1 million EBITDA, but the value of the company goes up because you have built out some stuff. And odds are the EBITDA would go up here as well. But again, just doing some rough live numbers here. And now it went up to 4x, right? Well, 4 times 5. So if we just play this out, the value of your company here is worth 15 million. The value of your company here is 20 million. Now, how do you calculate that? How do you sit down and go, wait, I made the same 750K. My investments are doing whatever we said they were doing, was to say they're at, they're tacking on, 40K a year. So 750K, 40K a year. And I added $1 million in value. I mean, sorry, not a million. I added $5 million in value to my business. And I work less, right? All of a sudden, you see how you're still trading time for money, because this is growing based upon the time that you had to learn to educate yourself, to acquire clients, to grow your business, stuff like that. And so it's going to grow on that. Same with this. This is out here growing as well. Your value of your company is improving as well, because now you're going, wait, I increased this by $5 million and I worked less. So how do I figure that out? So you can see why the simple way is for us to say, don't trade time for money. Don't trade time for money. And as an owner, you should stop trading time for money. And I get why they're saying that. Marketers are telling you that because it's something that we all go, it's a dream, right? It's a dream that we're not trading time for money. But if we're being honest, we're always trading time for money. We're always trading time for money. So if you made 750K and you worked, what I say on this current analogy, 500 hours, right? Well, by not working, theoretically, you're trading time for money, right? Because if you worked, theoretically, you can make more money. So you traded that time for money. So it's always a trade. It's always a back and forth. You can't escape this. This is how life works. What you want to do is, instead of saying, well, if I show up, it's $100 an hour. If I show up at $100 an hour, well, actually, I don't really know what it's worth. I can do, if a client wants to pay me some high-end consulting rate or something like that, cool. I can kind of show what that looks like. But at the end of the day, if I want to sit down personally and account for all the money that I made this year, well, I'm tracking my net, my investments, and the value of my company, the life it gives me. And the life it gives me might mean that you're enjoying your life more. Well, how do you put a time money equation on that? Because now you're happy. So it gets fuzzy. And so you want it to be, what I say, incalculable. I can't say that very well, but I'll say it again, incalculable. That's what you're hoping for. You're hoping that you can get to a spot to where it's incalculable. And removing owner dependency is the thing that helps you get there the fastest. Because the less dependent the business is on you, the harder it is for you to figure out, if you're being honest, the time it takes for, the time versus the time money equation, right? So time, money, don't trade time for money. It's harder it is to figure that out. The more involved in your business you are, the easier it is to figure that out. Now, if you're being honest, it's still a little bit harder because you attract investments, and that's probably not worth your time. And I'm not saying that anyone should sit down and figure out, well, I invested this much time and this much schooling, and I started off, I was born on this date, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we have to get out of this mentality of time versus money, because we're all stuck in this. This is the world that we live in. Our goal is to make it to where we can't track this anymore. It's just impossible for us to track. Shorthand, we want to rate, we want to charge clients, great, we can figure that out. But as far as our portfolio, the value of our company, our lifestyle, it's something you can't put a number on, because it's too much effort. It's not even worth the effort. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the simple time versus money equation. And what I'm suggesting is, it's all time versus money. It's just, can you track that or not? And the harder it is for you to track, the more expensive, the more valuable, the more enjoyable your life will be. So when you think about your problems in your business, you're going, okay, wait, I'm answering questions that, and let's see, I think I got it in this. Yeah, I'm answering questions. This is my focus flow grid I talk about a lot. I'm answering questions that are down here. I'm responding to emails. I'm doing things like this. And so, when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, well, what's the value of this? We can track this. If you were to hire someone to do this, what would you have to pay them to respond to emails, to keep your books up for you, stuff like that? What would you have to pay them to do that? Well, you got to pay them, let's just say $20 an hour. So you got to pay them $20 an hour to do that, right? So we can put a quantifiable number on that. And now we say, okay, well, it's $20 an hour to do that. And so is your time worth $20 an hour? Well, if we're thinking about it right, we want our time to be something that we can't track. So it's probably better for us to hire this person for $20 an hour to do this work, right? If we're up here, and I beat this drum a lot. I'm not a fractional CFO, but I beat this drum a lot. More SMB owners need fractional CFOs because they are grinding and not understanding, because it's no shade. They don't understand how to measure their cash flow and what levers they can pull to shorten payment periods and all the stuff that CFOs can work with you on. And so they spend a lot of time grinding on this, and it's probably cheaper and more effective for them to figure out who to hire, who to put in this place so that they do this. Because this, make sure I see this is the high ROI task. These are things that the ball can't be dropped, right? You can't drop the ball here. But what often happens is these things trickle down into these things, right? The fun zone is the stuff that we like to do that doesn't really move the needle, but we like to do it. The drain zone is stuff that is tied up to here, but it's stuff that we should be allocating to someone else to do. So as you're planning your Q2, you're thinking about it. You're going, okay, well, the first thing I hope you're doing is you're trying to sit back and go, I want to get out of the ability to track my time and money. And right now, for a lot of owners, they have investments, they have things, and if they're sitting down, they're going, okay, yeah, that's I can't actually track the value of my time because I don't want to sit down and do that. It's not worth it. So they're getting close to there. But here, right here, they're looking at this going, okay, this is, I can see this clearly. I'm working, let's just delete this. I'm making X and I'm working Y. And your goal as an owner is to keep this the same or improve it, depends on what your goals are, and to lower this number, right? So you want this number to go down and you want this number to stay the same or to go up, right? That's it. So let's just put some, so this is, I'm sorry, whoop, that's backwards. There we go. So we want our money to stay the same or go up, and we want our time to go down. It might stay the same, but if you're doing it right, it probably goes down. And when we do that, we begin to see that, wait, okay, now all of a sudden we're making this, but by making this same amount, we're investing, right? And the value of our company is going up. So wait, how do I measure this $4 million increase in value? And I hate saying this over and over again, but I try to be honest and upfront. I'm just using rough numbers here. Don't write me an email saying I did this and my company didn't go up from 3 to 4x, and so you lied. I'm just using numbers, but these are the true kind of ways to think about it. And for some owners, doing this can get you a change in a multiple from 3 to 4. And I hate that we use multiples because owners, I think, don't realize the implications of this. Now I did this math wrong. I can see now here. Oh, I did that wrong. Sorry, lab math. So that's 3 million to 4 million. I don't know why I multiplied by the wrong number earlier. Sorry. So that's a $1 million increase, not 5. My bad. Sorry about that. Doing lab math is the worst. So our value, our total net worth, if you will, went from yearly earnings, investment increase, and we have no control of this, for being honest. This goes up and down outside on the stock market. So, it's just kind of whatever. Maybe you're in real estate, you have some more control over it, but if you're not. And then the value of our company. So these three things become things that you can't track. They become things that you go, okay, now I get why removing myself from the business makes it more worth my time to do that. Because now I can work less hours. Maybe I make the same, but I'm working less hours. I can invest the same, understand that will compound, and then the value of my company will go up. Now, maybe I never sell it. So I have owners sometimes that come to me and they're like, I don't want to sell. That's great. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to build a sellable business. I call it exit ready. And the reason I say that is because you want to think about your exit in the sense of, am I going to retire in this company? Am I going to sell it? What am I going to do? Build out contingency plans for kind of each. But the biggest thing for most owners, unless you're building a small kind of consultancy lifestyle business thing, is to pull the levers to make this math where you can't calculate it. So as you go along, if you're removing owner dependency and you're layering in the bonuses to incentivize your team correctly, your EBITDA here will go to 2, let's say, right? And so your revenue is going to go up. Let's just change some numbers on this to make this somewhat feasible. So $8 million, $2 million EBITDA just to make this. And so now all of a sudden, well, going back to what we said earlier, now all of a sudden your business is worth $8 million, right? I can do that math. So you've added $5 million in value by working less, by focusing on the things that move the needle, by figuring out what are the high ROI activities that you want to be focused on, outsourcing or hiring for these, delegating these as soon as possible. And here we try to eliminate these as much as we can, understanding that we can't eliminate them fully, but we want to eliminate them as much as we can. And so if you're an owner and you're hitting all your goals and it's making perfect sense, like, oh man, I am crushing this year, and my fun zone is, sitting around brainstorming sessions. Well, that's great for you, but it's costing your employees the time it takes for them to get their job done. So it's one of those things that we struggle with. We can't ever, we're probably never perfectly eliminate it unless we're truly never talking to the business, which odds are ain't going to happen for most. But we're trying to spend as much time here as possible, because we know that the more time we spend here, the more money that we can help the company make. And that could just be executive decisions. That could be, key hires, could be some training that you're doing. It depends on who you are and what your strengths are. But the more we can focus here, the more money we can make. I hope that made sense. I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time. So hope to see you there. If you got any questions, you can, I'll put my email in the chat. You can put me, actually, I'll put a booking link in the chat. Let me just do that real quick. If people want to reach out, this is, I'll always say that for a lot of people, not always, but for a lot of people, kind of a discovery call is the first option. But I will tell you that I have learned over time that people who take these don't always do the things that they need to do to get their business moving. Like I've had these calls, and I've seen another person from social media, and I've seen like the next week they're doing the same thing that they were already doing. And so they're free. They're there for you to kind of evaluate me to see if I'm a help for you, me to help you as much as I can. And then if you're interested, we can go from there. Also, I have a paid webinar on this topic that will be coming out April 30th. So follow me on that. It's $97 to attend, and it's going to be an hour and a half. And so I'm going to sit down and really kind of break this down systematically for you to kind of give you a framework to remove yourself from the business. Okay. I don't think there's any questions or comments. I don't know why. Oh, wait, I don't want to do that. Okay. I don't know. Add a comment for YouTube. I don't know why I can't add comments anywhere else. So if you're leaving a comment or something, all I can see are the YouTube comments for some reason, which I need to get that fixed. Okay, cool. Awesome. I am going to hop out of here. Again, shoot me a DM if you can't see that booking link, you want to chat, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.